It's nice to have an opportunity to sit down after the movie comes out on something like this, because usually it's always before. You're thinking about everything but what you're talking about. But it's nice to sit here and be able to look back at the whole experience.
I'm just thinking back, John, to the first time that we walked up to the 6th floor at Disney, where Alan Horn, who hadn't long been at the studio, but had a real passion for this title. And I think was that the first time you guys met?
Alan had taken me to lunch, and we had scheduled it pretty much when he took the job.
Okay.
And it just so happened that our lunch was the day that Star Wars was announced.
Oh my
so
goodness.
It looked like we were going to lunch, me and the head of the
Oh,
studio.
that tongue's wagging, yeah, all over
Exactly.
town. Yeah.
And so I had just a general with him, and it was very nice. And then the call came that, he really wants to talk to you about Jungle Book. And my first instinct was, what do you do? I don't really have a take on that.
Yeah.
I know. Do you know it? Oh, I know it well because of his passion. Just come in and hear what he has to say. And so I came in, and then he, then it went into. I grew up with the Disney version. I feel like there's an opportunity to tell the story in a way that stays true to the conceits of the literary version, with talking animals and all this stuff. I said, I'm concerned about this. It had all this interaction and how difficult all the things we talked about. And he says, well, why do you have to, why are you constrained by the real jungle? You could build whatever you want. Then I'm like, oh, wow. Build an entire world, shoot the minimum amount with the kid, and then if you plan it right, you could make it look seamless. You gotta start from the Disney history, because there are people who know it inside and out. People have a vested interest in how these things come out, and they feel protective of it. And I, as a fan, feel the same way. I was born in the 60s, I grew up in the 70s. Disney was in full force throughout my childhood, and visits to Disneyland and Disney World shaped who I was as a person.
John came in early in the process. We knew the 67 film very well, but we were looking at the Kipling stories and trying to figure out, well, the tone necessarily changes when you're looking at a live-action aesthetic, and so what do we want to pull from Kipling? And there's a lot of interesting and kind of dense material there.
The first version that was presented to me of how they were breaking the story was pretty far afield from the animated film.
Oh, boy, I've seen everything in these woods.
It was geared, I think, more towards being a PG-13 movie. It seemed from the little bit of a treatment that they came up with. There was definitely a lot more violence and no music, and structurally it matched the Kipling more, where Baloo was in from the beginning, and I don't even think King Louie was in it.
Crazy.
I grew up with Jungle Book. I don't even remember when I saw it for the first time, but I remember everything about it, and I know the music, and I know the characters, and I remember having dreams about it.
Yes, man cub, please go to sleep.
And so when I was brought on board, my instinct was to definitely pull it back towards the film I remembered and figure out where that sweet spot was.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't going to be a G-rated musical, but I didn't want it to be something that was so intense that it couldn't have the tonal variety that the classic Disney films had. The stuff that fascinated Walt is fascinating to me. I love how he dealt with those challenges. I appreciate what he aspired to, and the way he curated a collection of stories using very old fairy tales and folklore and myths, and found a way to present them to a new generation using new technology.
Well, it sounds pretty good. In fact, that's just the right spirit.
There were a lot of aspects that I wanted to tap into to help connect us back to the source material.
Have I given you a clue?
Golly, thanks, Blue. The bare necessities of life will come to you.
That really had to do with centering on the heart of this kid's journey, dispensing with a lot of the more complicated political overtones that you can find in that material, and just bring it down to this journey about identity, about who is this kid and where does he belong, him figuring that out for himself with all these different voices in his ear.
Did you listen to anything Akira taught you? There's no place in the jungle for these tricks.
His goal was to tell a beautifully simple story, but to tell it in the most, profound visual way.
We open it up with a completely analog version of the opening castle.
I think we saw Bambi, and we saw the behind the scenes and the multiplane camera and what the new innovation was, and then it was something about, well, what if we did that for the opening instead of doing
but
the
we
CG
went
version?
all the way, because it started off as like, let's have a multi-plane shot in 3D, and then it turned into, let's actually have it painted on cells.
That's something that I really wanted to do, and then shoot it in Technicolor, where I shoot it with a red filter, green filter, and a blue. Actually, my son shot it, and then we would set it up exactly. And actually, what we found out is the math to actually do these multi-plane things like they did, really hard. I thought the fun part too is that we started with that, so now it's kind of Disney of old, so it's not like we're nodding to the past. And then it turns into the new version of a multi-plane camera,
with the music
which is
from the original Jungle Book and the shot from Bambi. And I also like the other Easter egg is, of course, the book.
Oh, the book was fun too. That was
book
great.
That you actually got to run the camera on, and because that was the whole thing, is that the first movie opens with the book opening up on blue velvet. You go into illustration, and then it transitions into the
we had to go to Disney to shoot it, and only the archivist could touch that book.
Right, with white gloves.
With white gloves, and we drilled holes in the bottom of the table so he could
because I wanted it to dance.
So he could make it dance, and I think he got a huge kick out of it. I think he went home and told his wife, I'm in the movie. My choreography is in the movie.
And it's a good thing, too.
I can't believe they let you get away with it.
Even though we hand off back to digital as soon as it opens up, there's just something, you're part of the thing.
Well, I heard you announce that factoid in front of a nice Friday evening crowd at the El Capitan Theater, Disney Central, and mentioned it, and there was a hushed response when they learned that the same prop is in this movie that was in that movie.
Well, we sort of start with an homage to Disney and end with an homage to the 67 book. So
and completely analog, both ends of this super high-tech, perhaps the most ambitious, certainly on the levels of interactivity and digital work, we're breaking new ground.
And I think that's a Walt thing. I mean, I think he would have loved that.
Walt at his time was cutting edge technology. When he was developing these animated films, starting back from Snow White, there was a stenographer in the room. And so in the archives, there's the actual conversations that went on as they developed these movies. And as we look at the stuff that they were dealing with on their films, it sounds like the same things that we're wrestling with technology, with schedule, with the talent of the artists, of recording the performers. How do you make the animals talk? As we feel like we're out in fresh snow with no tracks, using technology nobody's used before, doing something in a way nobody's ever done it. You hear other people 75, 80 years ago having the same conversations with a different context. And that's fun.
The idea of being able to tell a story in the way that Kipling had envisioned it, the only way I think you could have really brought that off back when Walt did it was through cell animation. And now we have the technology to actually bring these characters to life and put a real kid in a real environment, seemingly, with these characters that could communicate with them directly. And so the opportunity to show that now with today's technology was just irresistible.
And I'm only like 2 feet off the ground.
I know, that's the real magic.
We had decided to use this completely virtual environment approach. We wanted to keep it photoreal. If we could make the reference and the physics and all of it feel connected to the part of India that we drew most inspiration from. And we had photographers go down and we got all sorts of reference.
We're not like quite doing a travelogue, but there is a bit where you start to see this exotic land, which is part of the fun of going to the movies. You see a place that you've never really seen before, or you don't see very much of, and you get to kind of live it and walk through it. It's definitely an Indian jungle, including the animals that are indigenous to Indian jungles.
We made a decision very early on that we didn't want to bring wild animals in. So part of what's nice about the technology is that it's much more humane. And you can also get the animals to do whatever you want. So they'll be running through here to the side, the barrel run.
We wanted the animals to still look like their photoreal counterparts in nature. We wanted a bear to look like a bear and a panther, etc. We wanted it all to flow very naturally, so it required more preparation than I've ever seen in my time.
One of the biggest challenges is marrying the action of Mowgli and deciphering which parts of the set we need to build, like precisely. And that's why we kind of pre-made the movie, basically, in mocap.
You're looking up. You're scared. See that? Now you know you got to take this walk.
So you're looking up and you're walking towards it.
The mocap was really important because it gave a live-action approach for John to be able to previs the movie virtually, that we could then cut together and understand the spatial relationship and the performances before we ever had to shoot it live action.
Whoever's seen this.
It was like you do post-production first, then you do the photography. I need to find a cinematographer who would embrace the challenge of how do we create the movie before we shoot the movie. We found Bill Pope. He's a guy who's very experienced, traditional cinematographer, but I know there was a lot of great visual effects in his films. You look at Scott Pilgrim. I know that he was doing a lot of work on the Cosmos series, a lot of blue screen.
We can back him up and overlap it and do a blue flag and he can step into it.
Traditionally what you do with a cinematographer is you do a blue screen shoot. You have some reference of some drawings that were made. He looks at it, he looks at the person, lights the person beautifully, and then everything else in the scene has to inherit how you lit a close-up. And that's not the best way to work, because if he's facing Shere Khan, you're gonna want Shere Khan to get the backlight, which means you're gonna give him a front light, which isn't gonna be as flattering. And so we made all these decisions and cut all that together, and then Bill used that as a map. And so he would have on his computer the cut, and he would have reference, and he already knew what the backgrounds were gonna be. We had the set built, we knew where the camera was gonna be. Now, what you get from that, when you have a partner that's willing to do that, is visual effects that are stunning.
Bagheera, I'm not taking one more step. It matches so perfectly.
It's very hard to fake light and shadow. And so everything became about using panels of LEDs to project light. So if we had the kid bowing before the elephants, you have panels where we actually would pre-animate the elephants and they would cast the shadows on the kid in the exact right way. Or when we're walking on the turntable, the projector is tied to the turntable, which is meant to make Mowgli look like he's walking straight through the jungle.
Well, he told me to go to the man village, so that's where I'm gonna go.
It's a giant 30-foot diameter turntable, and when you walk on it, it looks perfectly natural because you're going up and down terrain, but yet you can keep it a close-up, and you could go for a mile if you wanted to.
Watch him go by like you're confused where he's going, then you decide you should follow him.
Come on, let's go. It's getting late.
It's amazing because some stuff in the beginning, which I thought, oh my God, how am I gonna do that? What am I supposed to do? They're like, oh no, you could just walk, we'll add everything else. And I was like, but how? Like, that's not real, that's not possible. But they made it possible. Bam!
This is Motion Builder. This is the first stop of things after they've been shot on stage. After they've been captured and art directed, they're gonna come here and then we're gonna work on them further. We may slightly alter an animation. We might slightly change a character's pose or change, where a branch is going or something.
It's been amazing to have these sort of tools available to us on this particular project, considering the very fast schedule that we do have, and being able to quickly iterate on not only the composition of the shots, but the look, everything from lighting and shadows, depth of field, particle effects, etc. Really start fine-tuning those details that you would not previously have access to.
We're using, which is quite a brilliant idea, is actually using puppeteers to keep the scene fresh. Yes, you can put a tennis ball, and after a while, you start acting to a tennis ball and not to a person. There's a chemical reaction when you see somebody, you see them smile or not smile or change their expression when you say something. Well, a tennis ball doesn't do that, but a performer does, and especially a puppeteer is used to dealing with kids and eliciting responses and emotions out of nothing.
Mowgli, Mowgli, Mowgli. Life would have been so much easier without him. Maybe I could have found a nice female panther to settle down with. That's okay. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a movie.
There were also puppets where they would just go like that, and I would imagine he's talking because his mouth is moving up and down. And so I just had to imagine a lot.
Ow!
We have these many creatures from the picture. We have our Raksha and our Bagheera here. They started out as reference points when we were doing motion capture. We've carried those since last year into the live action shoot and used them as eyeline props and reactive props. Action!
Bagheera! I was looking everywhere for you. I thought you were gone.
Are you all right?
We need a real emotional depth to Neil's performance, and you can't get that acting against something inanimate. And so John was very insistent that there's always a performer. there on the stage, and sometimes it was him, sometimes it was some of our puppeteers, sometimes it was other people, but he was always reacting to someone, so he knew what he was looking at, what he was focusing on.
So what happens is that after we film the boy, touching the puppets, and they'll take all that away and put the animated animal in there.
Hey guys.
What'd I tell you? He's special.
For certain characters, we do motion capture.
Some behind the scenes kind of thing? Yeah, I'm the stand-in for Balloon.
We did motion capture for the body movements, but we also tend to use a lot of reference cameras, several reference cameras.
Keep your voice down. I'm trying to concentrate. Everything going A-okay up there?
If it's a character like King Louie, you do get a lot of information from a primate, from a human set of expressions.
Only I can protect you, and I will for a price.
We changed some of the renderings of the animals based on Bill Murray and Ben Kingsley and things like that. You're not trying to make it cartoony. It's really just tweaking it just a hair into that, oh, that looks like something that Bill Murray would do, or it looks like something Ben Kingsley would do.
Bears don't hibernate in a jungle. What are you teaching him?
Not full hibernation, but I nap a lot.
It was Walt's vision to take these technical innovations and marry it up with characters that you could relate to emotionally. Here we are 50 years later. We're dealing with different technology. It's still artists and storytellers all trying to figure out what technical innovation is going to solve a very similar storytelling problem of how do you make talking animals? How do you show nature in a naturalistic way? As a filmmaker, it was a huge toolbox because I got to do stuff that would be indulgent on a live action shoot.
Yeah.
Like really manipulate the environment, the weather. In the pit with the elephants,
Yeah.
to have that be the break of dawn.
Yeah.
Unless you're Terrence Malick, you're not doing that.
No.
And the raining when they're saying goodbye, and Walt Disney would do it. You look at it in Snow White.
The environment's a
coming down.
character. Yeah,
It is. And in ours, it really was.
Totally.
So from a style point of view, there's definitely an aesthetic that we went after that I haven't seen before, but technically there were things that we did that you had said along the way that hadn't been done before. I think a lot of that was around the interactivity between the live action kid and the digital environment.
Yeah, not to shy away from it, but not to overdo it, to always play your hand. And I think it worked perfectly where Neil grabs Raksha and in the rain.
Yeah.
And so we made it as hard as you can ever do that shot. Pouring rain
Front and
and
center.
grabbing front and center, close-up shot, his fingers going through long hair that's wet was. And we just went for it, and if you achieve it, which we did, then you have something that says, oh, they can do anything, and it's an artistic choice when to do this interaction.
You kind of turn off the audience forgets to scrutinize at that point because it's just so, they take it for granted at a certain point. They just get caught up in the movie, which is, to me, the highest compliment is that they don't even know what you did. They just know that they've been overwhelmed. And that's what you want. You want the same thing as when a magician just completely pulls the wool over your eyes and you have no idea. Because that happens when you watch a magician, right? You watch and you say, okay, I think now I see where, okay, he palmed it there and now it's going in his coat. And you kind of could keep track of what the trick is, and then they come out and then they pull a big block of ice out of, from behind their back, and you're like, ah. And at a certain point, you're like, I'm in. As with all of my films, it always starts with the cast, because they are bringing the humanity and the emotion to these roles.
I realize you weren't born a wolf, but couldn't you at least act like one?
The original '67 Jungle Book was the first time Disney Studios used, I guess you'd call, celebrity talent. People who are iconic and identifiable just with their voices. We felt that we had permission to really reach out and find actors who are characters of our generation to help flesh this out. So casting Bill Murray was a dream. I've always wanted to work with him. Huge fan. He loves the character. He has all the charm and humor that you expect from that character.
Is that King Louie? This is so exciting. The legends do you no justice, sir. You are truly enormous. In the best way. That Jungle Book I thought was a real piece of art, and I always hoped I'd get attached to it. So when Jon Favreau said, would you like to do this, I really couldn't say no. Boy, if you could bottle what you guys got, that'd be quite a six-pack. You guys are flying. I want to be with you. I want to hitch my wagon to your star. Where do I sign up?
We have Ben Kingsley, who's Bagheera the Panther. He just brought this elegance.
You must be the very worst wolf I've ever seen.
That's nice. That's nice, right?
he really felt like a good counterbalance, a good yin to Baloo's yang.
Look, it's gotten late, too late to travel, so why don't we all just have a little honey?
I don't eat honey.
Rudyard Kipling's stories about Mowgli.
Take a look at this guy.
His adventures with these extraordinary, beautifully defined characters. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
That night I saw something I'll never forget. I saw a little boy, without a people, bring all the jungle together for the very first time.
Idris Elba as Shere Khan, just bringing his steely presence.
When was it we came to adopt man in the jungle?
The deep timbre of his voice, it just echoes in this bigger-than-life, scarred, imposing tiger.
I was definitely a fan of the original film. It's great, it's a classic.
I'm going to close my eyes and count to 10. It makes the chase more interesting. For me.
I think the most exciting thing about being a part of this project was that both my daughter and my son were going to get to see a classic with their dad's voice in a central position. That was like, yeah. Shere Khan is just a real coveted role. You want to protect him? Fine. But ask yourselves, how many lives is a man cub worth?
We have Lupita Nyong'o, who plays Raksha, the wolf that raised Mowgli.
And remember, not everyone here has seen a man cub in the jungle before, so behave yourself.
I was familiar with the Jungle Book mainly because of the old Disney version of it, which I grew up watching and loved so much. This is definitely a different take from the first version. There's a grounded nature to it, a realness and a darkness as well, which I think is necessary.
You're mine. Mine to me. No matter where you go or what they may call you, you will always be my son.
Giancarlo Esposito as Aquila, the alpha of the pack.
The original Jungle Book movie, I'll never ever forget it. I saw it around probably, I was born in '58, so probably right after it opened. And the idea of this man cub lost in the woods is a return to the origins of kind of where we've come from as human beings in a way.
The tiger knows who rules this part of the jungle. I'm sure he doesn't mean to come here and make threats, especially during a water truce.
All the roles were male in the original, so I thought that there was an opportunity with Kaa the snake to go with Scarlett Johansson.
It's a boy snake in the cartoon. And also he's a much more kind of friendlier version of our Kaa. He's really kind of goofy in the film and like friends with Mowgli and kind of like follows him along. In this film, Kaa is more of a storyteller and she's very seductive and she's like a mirror into the past for Mowgli. I know where you came from.
You do?
Yes. Would you like to see?
Yeah.
For me, it was kind of exciting to reinvent this character with John.
Maybe like on the yes, start to give us a little, stretch the S's out a little bit towards this part.
Okay.
A little more snaky.
Oh, okay. Trust in me.
She's sort of surrounding you because she's a big old snake. That's part of what makes it scary is you don't know
She's
where
like
she is.
the length of this whole entire series.
Yeah.
Kaa, the snake, very different in the book than in the film. And of course, King Louis never even existed in the book. So how do you update him and make him fit into a photoreal environment where, by the way, orangutans don't exist? So coming up with a Gigantopithecus, another species that existed, you know, and is now extinct, but existed in that part of the world. Our production designer found it in his research, and all of a sudden having a gigantic orangutan-like creature in man's ruins, in the temple, in the cold layers, offered a whole spectrum of possibilities. Visually, I started thinking about Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now, and how could we, you know, could we infuse some of that subtly into it?
You know who I am?
No.
I am the king of the Badalag. Call me Louis.
You know, Christopher Walken, interesting reimagining of the King Louis character.
Kid,
I got ears. My ears got ears. You want to live here? You need a people to protect you.
Well, it's the Jungle Book. You know, it's a classic story. I had seen it when I was younger. For me, it's trying to live up to the size of King Louis.
Once you have it, you rise to the top of the food chain. Nothing in this jungle can stand up to the red flower.
I believe it's Gary Shandling's last film, who's a dear friend of mine. He got to be the voice of Icky the porcupine, who's not in the '67 film.
My leaf.
But is, you know, one of the classic old characters from the Kipling.
Oh, that's my stick. I like this stick. Seriously, that's
This
my
is
stick.
my
No,
stick.
my stick. It's a water truce.
And he just turns this little part into something that's really entertaining, and I really love that I hear his voice. It's a bit bittersweet. I would have loved to have shown him the final product. He saw stuff as we were working on it, as usual, very supportive and enthusiastic, and when he would get excited, it would make you excited.
Ow! Sorry, my bad. It's involuntary.
There's clearly a building up of, I wouldn't say anxiety or tension, but there was definitely a sense of holding your breath as, are we gonna finish? Are we gonna get all these shots done? Is it gonna, you know, are we gonna miss something bad in QCing the technical aspects of all these shots between the 3D and the different formats and everything? When was the moment that you felt relief? Was it when we delivered and we saw it over a Technicolor where it looked good? Was it the moment that we screened it for people that hadn't seen it before? Was it the premiere? Was it when, you know, was it when it came out?
The first time I saw the entire movie from beginning to end with Debney's music in it, it was the whole thing, that was the final little bit to elevate it up to the movie, and I went, well, that's a pretty good movie. And before that, I was a little nervous about it because I didn't know.
Well, you were looking at all the picture, because that's the process. I don't know if people understand. You're working the visual side with bad old audio, right? And so you're there color timing it, approving, you're dropping the last shots in, and you're getting that to be spot on picture-wise with the credits in and the final. And then on the other side, I'm over at the sound mixing stage, and I'm bouncing between both of them.
So you're seeing crappy pictures.
Crappy picture with time code and everything, and old versions of shots. But you're mixing in these beautiful mixed music tracks and in the scoring session, same thing. So I'm seeing this movie with beautiful sound and beautiful music, but it looks terrible. I'm seeing a beautiful movie that sounds terrible, and then they come together. John Debney's a guy I worked with since Elf, but I knew he grew up on the lot at Disney. He knew Walt, he knew Richard Sherman. What would he bring to it? How could we evoke a classic Disney score that nobody's heard before? And how could we combine some of the old themes and songs and movements with some new themes that he came up with?
My father worked for Disney for almost 40 years. And when I was a youngster, they were making this incredible magical film called Jungle Book.
What have we here?
When we got wind of it, that Disney was going to make a new Jungle Book using this amazing technology, it was a no-brainer to kind of think, boy, if I could do anything, it would be Jungle Book. Today we have, I believe, a 104-piece orchestra. It's not that often that you're able to get that, and I think it's, honestly, it is truly a testament to John's vision.
Whoa, elephants.
And one of the things that John told me early on is that he wanted this classic orchestral Disney sound because he wanted it to be timeless. With that sound, there are loads of ethnic instruments. It's a world soundtrack, but based in very classical, timeless orchestral approaches, but with these hints of color along the way.
Now I'm the king of the swingers, oh, the jungle VIP.
John mentioned that he'd love to reinterpret or highlight or play little snippets of the songs that we all know and love. I mean, I blew a gasket on that. That was like, you mean I get to work with Dick Sherman's and Bob Sherman's, their music?
This is a very special day for me for many, many reasons. First of all, years ago when I was working on Jungle Book, we had a small ensemble playing the songs. It was just an intimate kind of Dixieland relaxed situation, and particularly doing I Want to Be Like You. Now I come in today, and there's 104 brilliant musicians, an entire symphony orchestra, playing the same song, but totally differently, totally new. It's all a whole new thinking about the material that we wrote many years ago.
Ooby-doo, I want to be like you. I want to walk like you, talk like you. Choo-choo. You'll see it's true. Someone like me could learn to be like someone like you.
Richard Sherman came in to hear what the story was about and come up with new lyrics for the song. And as I was describing to him how the scene had changed from the older 67 version, I mentioned it was this creature called the Gigantopithecus. And then he stopped me. And he said, wait a second, give me that word again, Gigantopithecus. And then the wheels started turning. And then he got a paper and pen. And then he came up with...
Now, you might think it's ridiculous that me, a Gigantopithecus, would ever dream I'd like to team with the likes of you, man cub.
He knows that, you know, if you get the right word and the right lyric and the right thing, it's catchy. And it feels like something, like a lyric that might have been cracked out of a vault from when the movie was made. The same sensibility, same sense of humor.
You should do this professionally.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, how magnificent it would be! A Gigantopithecus like me could learn to do like you humans do.
We're down here in New Orleans at Music Shed to do our sound recording. Figure we come down here, much like they did in the 67 film, get the musicians who are from here, like Dr. John, and Kermit Ruffins to play it so it didn't feel like movie score, so it felt like a real jazz band.
Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, that's why it's bare and rest to tease, with just the bare necessities of life.
I heard some of the music this morning, actually, and it really challenges you to be really good.
Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder of my big home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. When you look under the rocks and plants, and then take a glance at them fancy ants, and then maybe try a few. The bare necessities of life have come to you.
So like ham and egg in it, you're sort of feeding someone or pushing them or sort of setting a new level. Come up here, let's go up here.
Just like we rehearsed.
It was joyous being in there with all those musicians.
The bare necessities of life have come to you. They will come to you. Yeah, they'll come to you. The bare necessities of life.
If they can make us sound good, you know, it's kind of a miracle. And they made us sound really, you know, Chris and I are going to drop this whole acting thing and become singers now.
100 years ago, you had the Kipling stories. 50 years ago, you had the animated feature, and now here we are today. I really felt honored to be entrusted with this. I don't think at the beginning any of us understood how important this movie was and how deep the memories were.
The magic about the Jungle Book is that every child can identify with this feeling like the only one of your kind. I certainly did.
An orphan creating a family around him, which is, I think, a very poignant part of John's version of the film.
Everybody can relate to, like, finding your family. What does it mean to be a family?
This is the law of the jungle.
As old and as true as the sky.
Everything is kind of based and rooted in the movie and the nature, the emotion of it.
John has created a story that is just ripe with heart, and I think that's going to be the lasting effect.
You say you want to go to the man village. I say you could be a man right here.
All of these people with similar sensibilities brings this all together in a way where, for the viewer, it just looks like they're looking at a window into another world. All of that was inspired by circling back to what Walt drew inspiration from and updating the images that he found compelling. You have a good story you're all telling together, the good things happen. On a movie like this, you gotta find the right kid. You wanna find a kid who's sharp, smart, talented, that you enjoy watching. We found Neil Setti, who's never acted before, and we did a worldwide search of over 2,000 kids, and he was one of the last people I looked at.
I was in a Indian dance class, and the teacher told me I would be really good for the role. I thought, oh my God, how would that be? That would be so fun. So I auditioned, and they really liked me. How did I get here?
I remember from the first time I saw an audition that he did, I just liked watching him.
I love playing sports, and I'm very good at karate. I'm a red belt, and I'm gonna do a trick for you. I don't need no stunt double.
His personality in real life that comes across with extreme authenticity in the film, I just find charming and compelling, and he's just clever.
I was in a hotel in LA. The producer called. She said, "You got the role, guys." And I literally was like flipping and jumping, and it was really cool. It was fun. I'll do it.
Neil's like somebody I would have grown up with. Very familiar to me.
This one, last one. Good luck.
Yeah. So to me, he feels like whatever Mowgli represented to me. You'd be looking around, then when you get about halfway down, that's when I want you to look to your eye line.
What he told me was like, this movie's gonna be a roller coaster. Some ups, some downs. And you get to see how it is and how it all works and how movie making is.
Because of the way we worked, instead of doing layout, as an animated film did, we did motion capture. So we had everybody in the tracking suits on the sets with the set pieces.
We did full mocap first and then full live action.
There was some talk of maybe having somebody else stand in for Neil, an adult who would have longer hours. And then I would act it out with him, and I would create shots and boards from that capture. But it became clear quickly, like, let's get Neil out here. Let's start working with him.
I didn't really understand what the big technology was, because I was 10 at the time, and now I'm 12, and I still don't understand, because it's very advanced, and like, only the people who work on it will know everything about it. I saw it, and it was so cool that like, how at first it was a piece of styrofoam or it was a puppet, but now it's like a real tiger or a bear or a panther. Bagheera, I'm not taking one more test. It's crazy. Every morning at like 5 a.m., an hour and a half of makeup, where they would have like dirt or mud or something. They would airbrush it, and it had to be cold because there was air like coming out of the little tube, and they would airbrush it all over my body because I was practically naked. I was just wearing a diaper, but everybody called it a loincloth. And so, wait, what? Why are you guys laughing?
You can say that. I think that's fine.
It's a diaper.
We were really lucky to have John find Neil, who is amazing. He's a complete natural. In our very first fitting in New York City, he was dancing in a loincloth and completely at peace with that being his new reality for the next, X amount of months of his life.
I had like 9 different diapers. One was for mud, one was for rain, one was for like the hero look. It was pretty cool. The only other costume was I was wearing leaves to protect myself from bees, and that was really fun because it was something else. It wasn't just a diaper every day.
You play your cards right here. I'll get you a fishing app.
There's a lot of technology surrounding the movie, but it's really just getting honest moments out of this kid. And it's really been remarkable, and it's fun for me.
Cut. Yay, we got it. Check the gate.
And I get kids, because I have kids, and the trick is you talk to them just like you talk to an adult. You may have to be mindful of your vocabulary. You're not using words that they don't understand. But they learn a lot quicker than grown-ups, and they're definitely not set in their ways.
Neil knows how to take the temperature of a crowd and then put out what everybody needs from him to keep us all kind of going. And that's just the behind the scenes. He's very funny.
Anybody a veterinarian? Because these puppies are sick. Pictures up. Rolling. Rolling.
3, 2, 1.
Action.
Everything's geared towards the performance of this one kid. You know, when kids are on screen, as long as Mowgli is, you know, you want to make sure that you don't grow tired of them, that you're drawn in.
Jon Favreau, the director, he really helped me because he told me not to overact. Like some people do that where they over-dramatize something. I don't know if that's the word, but they like, if something's coming at you, you're not gonna go, "Ugh." You're gonna like do what you would normally do and go, whoa. Your natural instinct is to move. And he just said, do what you would normally do. And it was amazing because he's such a nice guy. And he always complimented me. And I just thought that was amazing because he's so accomplished. He got in the mud with me. He got in the rain with me. Whenever I was dirty or anything, he would get dirty too. And it was really nice because then we could really like a real person to a real person. It's not a real person to styrofoam or like a puppet or something.
If you look at the little rocks and plants to the glass,
And then fancy ass and that baby drive you.
the bare necessities of life will come to you. I trained in parkour in the beginning before we started shooting and stuff with Travis, the stuntman.
Relax, kid. No need to get worked up, okay?
I've worked with kids before. I was pretty confident, but I knew that I needed a good supporting cast around him. And I would bring Neil with me to record with these actors. And so he came with me to Martha's Vineyard, where Bill Murray was.
We went in a private jet, and I was really overwhelmed because I've never been in a private jet. And then when we were finally at Bill Murray's house, we had a lot of food. And the next thing you know, I was playing football with him. It was awesome. He's a nice guy.
Action! The young man was amazing. I mean, he was really extraordinary. It's fun to watch him. He's great. And, you know, he's such a good actor.
The camera loves him. He has just an incredibly expressive face, and it's been really a beautiful thing to watch John work with him and just the, you know, the sort of like natural, raw ability to act and how it's been fostered, and now he's just really become so much more seasoned.
I'm Mowgli the Sea, and this is my home!
When we wrapped, Neil said, I've been working on this movie a 10th of my life. And it's true.
It's crazy because I never thought it would end. Because it was a long movie, it was 9 months, and I heard usual movies are like 3 months or something. It was really fun though.
Many strange tales are told of this jungle, but none so strange as the tale of the cub we call Mowgli.
Take a moment, first of all, for us to say thank you to you. It's amazing. We are playing a tune that some of you might have heard. And we are graced today to be joined by the author of this tune, Mr. Richard Sherman.
I'm so honored to be here. What a symphony. Look at what a massive sound it is. It's great and it's wonderful and I'm thrilled. God bless you all.
That's what makes you a man. You can summon the red flower and control it.
They told me not to go near the red flower.
You know why they tell you that? Because once you have it, you rise to the top of the food chain. Nothing in this jungle can stand up to the red flower.
Please, I just want to go.
Now, don't try to kid me, man cub. I'll make a deal with you. What I desire is man's red fire to make my dream come true. Now, give me the secret, man cub. Come on! Show me what to do. Give me the power of man's red flower so I can be like you. Oh, ooby-doo. I want to be like you. I want to walk like you, talk like you, too. You'll see it's true. Someone like me can learn to be like someone like you. Now, you might think it's ridiculous that me, a Gigantopithecus, would ever dream I'd like to team with the likes of you, man cub. But together we'd have powers, all the jungle's treasures ours. I got desire, you got the fire, but the dream I dream takes two. So, I wanna be like you. I wanna use that flame just the same as you can do. Oh, how magnificent it would be. A Gigantopithecus like me could learn to do like you humans do. Just one thing we need to reach our full potential. Bring me that red flower, and we will rule this jungle. I will protect you, and you will want for nothing ever again.
I can't.
You can't or you won't.
I can't.
You will!
Excuse me? Anybody? Excuse me, am I in the right monkey temple?
Seize him.